America is football. Football is America.
Football is America. And if you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass. This is a moment in time. I don't give a damn. Oh my God.
No.
You love it.
30 to 27. Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, back in the studio for the first time since taking my week vacation to Denver, Colorado. My name is Kyle. We have basically, if my math is mathing, 17 games to go over. There's going to be games that, I'll put it this way. Usually, week 1 and week 2 are really important because there's something that we feel like we're learning about teams. Now, whenever you have predictions come out, let's say Fox, the panel on Fox does their predictions, okay? And let's say there's 4 games out of the 17 that they all agree that the same team is going to win. Those games, should the other team win, right? Should all of them be wrong, those are the ones that we circle. And in a lot of those cases, it's just a really good team is playing a bad team, and it's just lopsided. But in some cases, there is a really good team playing a good team. But that's what we saw with Detroit and Tampa. We saw everybody on the panel pick Detroit. And the thinking was not that the Bucs weren't a good team. It was not. I mean, it was people like myself had the Bucs being a good team. But the question is, how good are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And that is why it's games like this where we can actually learn a thing or two. It's games like New Orleans and Dallas, right? Nobody picked the Saints to win that game. Nobody was going in on the Buccaneers. Very few people were going with the Vikings over the 49ers. Now, I did pretty well, when I look at the records of all the other teams that did it. We got Liam in the chat. What's up, Liam? I did pretty well. I think I don't have my exact notes with me in front of me. But I can just go off of memory. I took the Vikings over the 49ers. I had the Jags beating the Browns, and I had the Colts beating the Packers, so some losses there. I did pick the Lions, but in my because I had to send my predictions to Rick ahead of time, even in my notes, I was like, I want to go with the Buccaneers, but I'm picking the Lions. Not surprised at all that the Bucs got the win. Okay. But I feel like if there's one team that we learned the most about this weekend, it's the Bucs and the Saints. Okay. And we'll talk more about that. I had the Jets beating the Titans. I had the Commanders over the Giants. I had the Cardinals over the Rams. I had the Chiefs over the Bengals. I had the Texans over the Bears. And I dropped the Falcons beating the Eagles. And I lost of course, the Broncos losing to the Steelers. And also the Raiders beating the Ravens. I did not see that coming from a mile away. Now, what we do week 1 and week 2, we gather information. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you might just find yourself very confused. Like, the Raiders beat the Ravens. Oh, now I don't know what anything means. Okay, push the brakes a little bit and let's take a look at some of these games, because in some metrics that are important, we're going to cover them here today. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a deep dive, because it's not necessarily just a matter of metrics. You don't just take opponents' yards allowed per game and your own personal yards per game and say, okay, that means you're a good team. For instance, let's say right now you are giving up 100 yards per game, opponent yards per game. Defensively, you're only giving up 100 yards per game. and that puts you in, let's say, number 1 in the NFL. But you played the Panthers and the Broncos in the first 2 weeks of the season. So it's not so much just to look at the numbers, but it's to look at the numbers and then look at the teams, and then you get it. You really understand what you're looking at. Okay. Like for the Bucs. Okay. Are the Bucs a great team? Okay. That's kind of the question. Okay. Because like I said, when all the experts are saying the same team is going to win and that team loses, we learn a lot about the teams involved. In many cases, I said this earlier, it's because you have a dominant team playing a bad team. But in games that what appear to be a great team playing a good team, like the Bucs and the Lions, we have a chance to learn about the good team. And in this case, we have some digging to do about the Tampa Bay Bucs, right? It's week 2. We want to know what's going on. The Bucs are 2-0. They just beat a really good team on the road. It's a fair question. Are the Bucs a really good team? Okay, the Bucs weren't a bad team. We knew that, but we learned that the Bucs might be closer to a great team than we thought. So it is worth inspecting a little bit. Now, what's interesting is you try to figure out what the Bucs do, because if you're going to be a great team, you have to be top 5 in something. It could be rushing, it could be passing, defensively. You just have to be, in my opinion, if you're going to be a great team, you have to be really good at something. You can be pretty good at everything, and that works out too. But the Bucs are interesting because they're 12th in passing yards per game. Okay, that's pretty good. 213 passing yards per game. They're 24th in rushing yards per game. That's bottom half, not even 100 yards per game, 91. They're 28th in yards allowed per game, so they're giving up almost the most yards per game, 381. So they must have a really good rushing defense, right? No, they're 19th. They give up 138.5 rushing yards per game, almost 140 rushing yards per game. So what makes the Bucs such a good team? The numbers, they're not terrible, but they're not great. 29th in passing yards allowed. Maybe they're just taking the ball away defensively a lot, right? No, it's not that. Green Bay's leading the league. They average 3 takeaways per game. Tampa Bay's 14th, averaging just 1 takeaway per game. So it's not like they're stealing games defensively. So what gives? And this is why it's important to take a look. Because it's not, as much as everybody wants to start 2-0, there are teams right now that are 0-2 that are better than teams that are 2-0. For instance, the Ravens right now are the unluckiest team through 2 weeks. Nobody has more yards per game than the Ravens. Okay. Now, unluckiest is actually a measurable stat. And I was looking into it. It takes into consider like drop balls, dropped interception opportunities, a lot of different things. And then it basically spits out who are the most unlucky teams. But if you look at the Ravens, they have more yards than anybody through 2 weeks of football, yet they haven't had a win yet. Okay, the Lions are second. Saints are third. Okay, the Saints have the third most yards through 2 games. And the Saints are also 7th in defensive yards allowed. So the Saints are top 10 on offense and defense when it comes to yards for and yards against. Now, the Saints, their first game is against the Panthers. So you're like, okay, well, that's not really a tough offense. But they played the Cowboys on Sunday, and they absolutely demolished them. And then Tampa Bay is another team that was shocking. In Arizona, I've been telling everybody, watch out for Arizona. They're here now. Arizona's 7th through 2 weeks of football in yards per game, averaging 379 yards per game. They almost beat Buffalo. They destroyed the Rams, so they're 1-1, but they're also 13th in yards allowed defensively. So Arizona and New Orleans playing very complementary football. But like I said, the opponents matter, right? Defensive yards allowed. Number 1 is Tennessee. Okay, they played Chicago and the Jets. The Chargers, they played the Raiders and the Panthers. Houston played Indy and Chicago. Okay, Pittsburgh's number 5. They played Atlanta and Denver. I believe last time I checked, Pittsburgh hasn't had a team even in the red zone yet. Something crazy like that. So, the yards allowed and all that matters, but you have to take it a step further, in my opinion, and you have to take a look at the opponents that these teams are playing in order to, get the whole story. So week 1 started off with Buffalo, and they were able to beat the Dolphins in a pretty sizable win, right? Tua got a concussion. That's been all over the media. Is he going to play? Should he play? Should he not play? Like that conversation is it's just been talked about so much. Like, he just got paid a bunch of money. He's going to play. Even if he shouldn't play, that's a whole different conversation. Like, yeah, when Tua is healthy again, he's going to go back out there and play. And it really doesn't matter how much we talk about the subject. Ultimately, it's his decision. It's his choice. And that kind of stole the whole narrative of this game. But what I think is worth mentioning is that Buffalo's 2-0, and Buffalo looks pretty good after losing Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. I thought that Buffalo would perhaps have their best season this year with Josh Allen. I said Josh Allen might win the MVP this year. I think him losing those 2 receivers only adds to the exclamation mark attached to the type of games that we're seeing out of Josh Allen. This game was supposed to be much closer than I thought it would be, but or it should have been much closer than it was, is what I thought it would be, but it didn't turn out to be that way. Okay. But I'm sure that game's been covered already. So let's move to what I would say is the first upset of the game, or of Sunday's slate, and that's the Raiders beating the Ravens. Gardner Minshew, Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, they looked pretty good. Honestly, it was a pretty significant game for Gardner Minshew in establishing connections in this kind of, I will say, a second wind almost, because it was really the second half that these connections began to take off. The Raiders win 26-23. There was several players that had standout efforts, including Max Crosby. And like I said, Brock Bowers and Devontae Adams had a really good game. PFF's dedicated team of graders was hard at work analyzing every player in this game, and we're going to give you those as soon as they get released. But the player of the game is Devontae Adams. He was putting on a show. He had the Raiders' game-tying touchdown drive. Brock Bowers was a reliable but quiet weapon. He brought in all 9 of his targets for 98 yards, including 46 yards after the catch. 2 of the rookie Bowers catches were contested as well. And the game, as far as the box score goes, was pretty even. The Raiders had 60 plays to the Ravens 63. But the Raiders had 374 yards. The Raiders only had 261. And this is what I was saying earlier about the Ravens being the most unlucky team in week 1. Next up, we have the Chargers and the Panthers. And man, the Chargers are doing much better than people think. The Chargers were one of those defenses that has really stood out. Let me see really quick. I think I attached the defensive rankings here. Maybe I didn't. What I do know is the Chargers have given up the fewest points thus far in the NFL. And Jim Harbaugh did not take long to turn this franchise around, and I expect the Chargers to be 4-0 and playing for first place in the division when they play Kansas City. I believe it's a Thursday night game, week 5 or somewhere around there. But something happened in this game. Bryce Young got benched, okay? And it made me think about something, how it doesn't matter how much hype you have. The best quarterback, I mean, the most hype only buys you a season and 2 games, depending on how bad that first season goes. And last year, I would say the Panthers had such a horrible season that it qualifies as only 2 more games of grace. And it'll be interesting to see, like, no, we just pulled them from this one game. But it's when you pull a rookie quarterback out of the game, you're sending a message. The message is clear. We want to see if it's Bryce Young or if it's us, right? So you put Andy Dalton into the game and you see if the offense looks better. It did, okay? Bryce Young managed 18 completions on 26 attempts for 84 yards and an interception, and the home crowd voiced their frustration as Young, the former number 1 overall pick, averaged only 3.2 yards per attempt and dropped to 2-16 as the Panthers starting quarterback. So if you're wondering how much grace do you have, well, for a number 1 overall pick, about 18 games. Okay. And this is crazy to think too, because like you got 3 rookie quarterbacks playing right now in Bo Nix, Jayden Daniels, Caleb Williams, that all together have amounted 0 touchdown passes. They have all looked, I would say this has been a great year to really appreciate how hard it is to take this step from college to the NFL. But if you're one of those quarterbacks and you're watching, you realize you're like, man, this is a win now league. And I don't care if you're Caleb Williams, the most talked about guy in years, or you're Bo Nix, the last quarterback taken in the first round. Like, if you put up these type of numbers every single week, you will expire before next season even begins. There has to be some sort of improvement. There has to be something that teams are going, oh, he's improving. Okay. You cannot just keep putting out 84,000 fans, putting them in these situations where you have to sit here in the crowd and watch as the offense is inept, as you get 3.2 yards a carry. Having all these fireworks in the stadium, and you don't get to fire any of them off because you didn't score a single touchdown. You can't keep putting the fans through it week in and week out and just be comfortable with that. Eventually, the coach is like, I have to make a change. I have to at least show the city that I am trying to win. Because clearly, like, we're not improving. So, it would be a fool to sit here forever and not make a change. And like, it just sucks. It sucks for Bryce Young. It sucks for all the rookie quarterbacks that it happens to, because some of it is just so much a product of where you get drafted. Look at who would have thought Sam Darnold could be comeback player of the year, right? But look at the success he's having. He's in the best situation that he has been in, and he just beat the San Francisco 49ers. So in the meantime, the Panthers look like they're going to have another abysmal season, and the Chargers look like they're going to be a much improved version of what they were last year. They're coached well. They're on top of the league in penalties, in a good way, not forfeiting penalties. 26 points is plenty. Quentin Johnson looks like he's finally taking that year 2 step. When he was drafted, he was always a project. That's what everyone was saying. That was his whole entire thing, was like, great size, great strength, has a lot of learning to do. He's a project, but if he can grow into his body and he can learn the game, he can be a great wide receiver in this league, and that might be what's happening now. I'm not ready to say that's what's happening, but just keep an eye out for Quentin Johnston because it looks like he might be making that step right now. Okay. But yeah, good on the Chargers. It's the Panthers, but you got to take care of business. Now here comes a game that was a huge upset. Okay, the Saints beating the Dallas Cowboys. Who could have seen this coming? The Saints didn't just beat the Cowboys; they beat the living crap out of them. And Derek Carr is playing the best quarterback. He's playing the best quarterback, playing the quarterback position better than any quarterback in the NFL. Right? Crazy, but not so crazy if you kind of followed him throughout the offseason. All of the talk about I'm getting back to what I was doing in college, breaking PRs for his squats, breaking personal records. He's continuing this young energy. You draft Spencer Rattler, so you put somebody young in. For Derek Carr, he knows. He's like, it's this year or it's over for me. People are already sick of me. The whole offseason, people are like, how long until Spencer Rattler comes into the game? You think Derek Carr doesn't know that? He knew it was now or never, and he came out not just this game, but this season, ready to kick ass. He finished 12 of 17, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, though the 1 interception resulted of a tip pass, not a bad decision. The thing is, when you can run the football as well as they were able to run it, then the whole offense just works so well. And that is a problem for every team that is not moving the ball. We can't run the football. We all have that in common. But the Saints had 432 total yards. They had 14 rushing first downs to the Cowboys 5. If you can rush for 14 first downs, you're probably going to win that game. If you convert 75% of your third downs, you're probably going to win that game. Okay. The Saints are looking really, really good so far. And I took a couple notes on the Saints here. Where did I hear there? 7th. Okay. So defensive yards allowed. The Saints are 7th. They have a top 10 defense right now. And then offensively, the Saints are 3rd in yards per game. The Ravens are 1st, Lions are 2nd, Saints are 3rd. So, the Saints are out here and they're playing really good football and they're clicking on all cylinders. It's not just the offense, it's the offense, it's the defense. They're not getting a bunch of penalties. They're defensively, they're making plays. So it feels like the Saints, we almost like how we were going to forget about Derek Carr, we were forgetting about Alvin Kamara. Like Alvin Kamara scored 4 touchdowns in this game. 3 times on the ground, once through the air. Carr made another statement by completing 12 of his 17 pass attempts. And I just think when you look at the Saints right now, I don't think you could have ever predicted that they would have started the season this way. Nobody had them beating the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys had won 16 straight home games going into this game. And the Saints were the team that was going to come in and smoke them. Man, the Saints look really, really good right now. And that's crazy because I could have predicted Derek Carr having a good season, but I couldn't have predicted the Saints as a whole looking like this. I thought Dennis Allen should have been fired. Now it's like, who said that? Dennis Allen should be fired? That's a bad idea. The next game, okay, the Bucks and the Lions. What a game. Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming in with something to prove. Of course, the Lions knocking off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the postseason after the Tampa Bay Bucks get in with a 9-8 record. in a really weak division, feeling like whoever wins is going to be one and done in the playoffs anyway. And then the Bucks get in to the postseason and they get hot at the right time and they beat the Eagles. And then they go to Detroit and they go toe to toe with Tampa and or toe to toe with the Lions. And it was a great game, but the Lions come out on top. And then this year they are like, you know what? Was it a fluke? Was it not a fluke? They said it wasn't a fluke. They paid Mike Williams. They made sure that they kept Baker Mayfield on a $100 million contract. And some people said, oh, you overpaid him and all this stuff. It all looks great right now. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are one of the best teams in the NFL as far as the numbers go, the teams are playing, and the teams that they're beating. This was a really, really good team. The Bucs, of course, beat the Commanders week 1, but this game is going to mean a little bit more, being Dan Campbell's Lions, avenging their 31-23 playoff loss. Mayfield, though, he had a very efficient game. He completed 12 of 19 passes, 185 yards, but 9.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He also scored on an 11-yard designed run, rounding out a solid effort despite facing a lot of pressure from Aiden Hutchinson in the Lions pass rush. What I like about the Tampa Bay Bucs right now is when you look at points per game, yards per game, rushing yards per game, rushing yards allowed per game, you look at all the metrics, the Bucs aren't at the very top in anything, but they're pretty good everywhere. They're pretty good all around. And I think that's what it takes to be a really good team. You have the ability to win games that aren't your prettiest games, right? That is a sign of a good team. A really good team can win when they don't have their best day. And the Buccaneers showing the fluidity to win in multiple different ways, to me, is a sign that the Buccaneers are in for a really, really good season, and a season that fans should be excited about. Aiden Hutchinson was relentless, though. He's going to still be the player of the game. Normally goes to a winner, but he had 5 sacks, 1 hurry, 2 additional pass rush wins across 25 pass rush snaps. He was a constant problem, and he is going to extend his lead as the NFL's highest graded edge rusher. He's getting better and better, and it seems like this is going to be his breakout defensive player of the year type season, by the looks of it. So for the Lions, it sucks to lose, but they're going to win a lot of their games. Okay. Let's go through. I'm going to try to get through these. I'm going to try to get through these quick. I'm going to be going live tomorrow too. I just wanted to kind of get back into it, to the rhythm here and talk about some of these games. So the Colts and the Packers. I wasn't sure what to expect with this game. I took the Colts simply because Jordan Love was out. Okay. Jordan Love being out made me feel like Malik Willis is a terrible second option. It made me feel like the Colts were good enough to kind of handle business until Jordan Love got out. Now, if Jordan Love played, I would have gone with the Packers 100%. But that wasn't the case. But it looks like I was wrong anyway, because Malik Willis looked good in this game. I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you kidding me? I was shocked when I talked to my brother, who is a Packers fan, and he was like, yeah, dude, I think they're good. Malik Willis in the Green Bay Packers rushing attack overwhelmed the Colts en route to not a high-scoring game, 16-10 victory for Green Bay. The first game without Jordan Love, and Malik Willis had a really efficient day, finishing with 122 yards, 1 touchdown through the air, and 41 yards on the ground. Josh Jacobs finished with 151 rushing yards on 32 carries. Willis was able to run LaFleur's offense and to just do enough for Green Bay to win. And that's what's impressive here, is that Malik Willis looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league with Mike Vrabel. Now he comes over to Matt LaFleur. They get a whole week of practice together, and boom, all of a sudden Malik Willis looks efficient. That's what a good coach does. Aaron Rodgers, he leaves. Jordan Love looks bad. He makes Jordan Love look good. Okay, he made Malik Willis look good. LaFleur is very quarterback friendly, and he is like, okay, let me put my quarterbacks in a position to succeed. And he continues to prove that he can do that with not just Jordan Love, even someone like Malik Willis. And this just blows my mind. Jonathan Taylor was good. He rushed for 103 yards on 12 carries, but he didn't touch the ball in the fourth quarter. Weird. Anthony Richardson was 17 of 34 for 204 yards with a touchdown to go along with his 3 interceptions. He also ran for 37 yards on 4 carries. Richardson, however, continued to struggle throwing the ball accurately, which resulted in those 3 picks. The Colts' run defense stiffened up in the second half, but they couldn't come all the way back because their offense failed to capitalize on opportunities. The Colts failed to score on 3 separate trips into Packers territory, and we could make this easily about the Colts offense struggling to get going, but I think we should make this about Green Bay's defense. All right, this is their second week in a row having 3 takeaways on defense. The Green Bay's defense is really solid, and they're going to make teams look bad. The Colts failed to score on 3 separate trips into Green Bay's territory. Indianapolis cut the Packers' lead to 16-10 on Richardson's 4-yard touchdown pass to Alec Pierce with 1:47 seconds left to go. But Williams intercepted a Hail Mary attempt from the Indianapolis 41 to end the game. And it's not the most sexy win in the world, right? This is a lot of takeaways, a lot of mistakes. But both teams running the football effectively, not capitalizing in the red zone. And ultimately, the winner was the team that played a cleaner game and the quarterback that was more efficient. And who would have thought it was going to be Willis and not Anthony Richardson, the quarterback that had higher odds to win MVP than Matthew Stafford going into this game. All right. Next up, we got the Jets and the Titans. Did you know Aaron Rodgers has never in his life started his career 0-2? Ever. I find that just fascinating. After well over a year, Aaron Rodgers finally got his first win in a Jets uniform after finishing off the Titans by a score of 24-17. Rodgers was aided by the NFL's youngest player ever to score a touchdown, who was Braylon Allen, who scored 2, actually. And he led the Jets to a win over Will Levis and the Titans, although Calvin Ridley looked really good in this game. Some guy dropped Calvin Ridley, and I was like, oh, I'll pick him up. Calvin Ridley had 2 touchdowns in this game. I have no idea what made him want to do that, but the Titans did have a chance at the end to tie the game up. Will McDonald, who had 3 of the Jets' 4 sacks, got his 3rd with 23 seconds left. On 3rd down, Levis threw to Tyler Boyd on 4th and goal from the 14 with Jets safety Tony Adams helping break up the pass. To turn it over on downs, the Jets got 17 points off Titans' mistakes. First came off an interception. There was a roughing penalty by 2-time Pro Bowl defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons on 3rd down. That kept a New York drive ahead for the Jets. First lead, 14-10 to start the 3rd quarter. And then Irvis Charles blocked Ryan Stonehouse's punt that resulted in a 33-yard field goal. Levis, who now has 5 turnovers in the span of 6 quarters to start his 2nd season, Levis finished the game with 192 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and a fumble. And I did think that there was moments in the game where Levis looked good. But there's also moments where he's just not protecting the football well enough. There's moments in the game where he's overthrowing wide receivers. This is kind of a theme with a lot of young quarterbacks, but he's got to find a way to, more of the good, less of the bad. And it's week 2, so we'll see if he can, fix some of that, clean some of that stuff up as the week continues, because every single one of these quarterbacks All the rookie quarterbacks, Will Levis, they're all saying the same thing in the press conference. We got to find a way to clean some of this stuff up. Well, we'll see by week 5 if it happens, because if it doesn't, and there's going to be calls to move on from Will Levis. Minnesota, I said this earlier, the Vikings, I picked them to win this game because Sam Darnold is going to be the comeback player of the year. Sam Darnold shredded the 49ers defense time and time again to order. I'll say it this way. I don't know if it had anything to do with Sam Darnold playing with Kyle Shanahan last year. Maybe he ran a lot of the scout offenses or just practicing against his defense. But I was wondering if that was going to be a factor when I saw this game. And I think it was. Just the way he was shredding that defense. It made me feel like he had spent a good amount of time with this defense. Despite being down to his second best wide receiver in Jordan Addison, his best tight end, TJ Hawkinson, and later in the game, he would lose Justin Jefferson. So, I mean, you lose Jordan Addison, you don't have TJ Hawkinson, and then you lose Justin Jefferson later in the game. And Darnold still found a way to will his team to victory. Had it not been for a red zone interception and an Aaron Jones fumble inside the 2-yard line, this game could have been a blowout in favor of the Vikings. A blowout. I mean, the Vikings could have blown out the 49ers. I find that fascinating. Christian McCaffrey down. The 49ers had to rely on Jordan Mason, who had a great game last week, and he showed up, finishing with 100 yards and a touchdown. Brock Purdy finished with 319 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, but when it came down to the end, they just couldn't do enough to win. Deebo Samuel was the leading receiver for the 49ers, finishing with 8 catches, 110 yards. However, following the game, Samuel was ruled out for multiple weeks with a calf injury. And that is just the thing about Deebo Samuel, is like, he's amazing when he's on the field, but he has a hard time staying on the field. But for the Vikings, they're 2-0. They're feeling really good. That defense looks amazing under Brian Flores. And it seems like Sam Darnold is finally in a position to succeed. And this team is only going to get better as the weapons start coming back. So I like where the Vikings are at right now. I like it a lot. They look like they could be a playoff team. The Seahawks barely beating the New England Patriots. Jason Myers was the hero for Seattle. He booted the 31-yard field goal in overtime to give the Seahawks the win. The game winner capped a 3-for-3 day for Myers kicking the ball. Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith led Seattle on an 8-play, 71 drive to the New England 13 to set up the game-winning score. Geno Smith, 33 for 44, 327 yards on the day with a 56-yard touchdown to DK Metcalf in the first half. Metcalf finished with 10 catches for 129 yards. The Seahawks also got a 100-yard receiving game from Jackson Smith, Nigba. I can never say that. I'll just say JSN like everyone else. Having 12 catches for 117 yards, playing in their home opener under first-year head coach Gerard Mayo, and the Patriots got 81 rushing yards and 1 touchdown from Ramondre Stevenson, 96 rushing yards from Antonio Gibson. Pretty effective running the football for New England. Quarterback Jacoby Brissett was 15 for 27, 149 yards, 1 touchdown to rookie Jalen Polk, and the Seahawks kept their hopes for a win alive late in the game after Julian Love blocked a 48-yard field goal attempt that would have put the Patriots up by 6 with only 3:59 left in regulation. So, sure, the Seahawks are 2-0 after beating the Broncos and the Patriots. I think there's a bigger story here. The Patriots are going to be a tough opponent week in and week out. Okay. They're playing good defense and they're running the football effectively. Nobody could have predicted that they were going to beat the Bengals week 1. And now here they are, at home. No one's expecting them to win, and they almost pull it off. I mean, if it's not for a blocked field goal, the Patriots are up 6 points with 3 minutes left in the game, for about 4 minutes left. So to me, the story is about Seattle, and I'm really excited to see how Seattle does, or the stories about the Patriots. I'm excited to see how they do moving forward. The Commanders and the Giants. Whew, and we got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games left. Okay. Not gonna say a ton about this game. I'll say this. All the rookie quarterbacks look like a project right now. None of them are dominating. But I will say the rookie wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, was the Giants' best player with 10 catches, 127 yards in his first touchdown reception. Daniel Jones, coming off a pretty abysmal week 1, rebounded nicely, finishing with 178 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 32 yards on the ground. Devin Singletary had 95 rushing yards and a score. But ultimately, the Commanders they were able to get the job done. Daniels was 23 of 29 for 226 yards. He also rushed for 44 yards in his second professional start, and beating his former LSU teammate Malik Neighbors, who went off in this game. Great day for LSU. You know what I mean? I talked about the Chargers and the fact that they're winning games with that defense. They didn't even let the Panthers get into the red zone. They're not forfeiting any penalties. They have given up the fewest amount of points through 2 weeks of football of any team. Quentin Johnson finally has taken that next step. The J.K. Dobbins ran for 131 yards. Like, the Chargers were going to be good right away. And I kept saying it. It's true. The Chargers are good. They're good right now. And it freaking sucks to have to watch it from the outside. But, man, we got to get it. We got to get our shit together, man. We have to. The Raiders beat the Ravens. The Chargers are undefeated. The Chiefs are undefeated. And the Browns over the Jaguars. I did not think this was going to happen. Deshaun Watson ran for a touchdown. Dustin Hopkins kicked 3 field goals. It was a stingy game. To hold Trevor Lawrence and the Jags to 13 points was really the key to victory. The Browns dominated much of the rainy day. They sacked Trevor Lawrence 4 times, holding Jacksonville in check for nearly 3 quarters. The Jags woke up late. He found Brian Thomas Jr. Trevor Lawrence found him for 66 yards to set up a touchdown. Then adding a field goal to make it a 1-score game, the Jags got a chance in the final minute and mustered a threat with 8 seconds left, but Lawrence's pass to the end zone fell to the ground. Lawrence was a non-factor for most of the afternoon, and Trevor Bank Stadium was not to be. Lawrence completed just 14 of 30 passes, 220 yards, as the Jaguars lost for the 7th time in their last 8 games. Dating back to last season, Watson was 22 of 34, passing for 186 yards, 73 of those going to Jerry Jeudy. Jerome Ford ran for 64 yards. I did not see this coming, but I guess this is why it's any given Sunday. There's so much talent on the field. It's like at any given Sunday, one team can wake up and the other one just not. And that's what happened here with the Jaguars. The Browns were beat, almost like kind of embarrassed last week. But the Jags also lost last week too. So one of these teams had to go 0-2. I just didn't think it would be Jacksonville at home. Biggest upset of the week was the Ravens losing, or the Ravens losing to the Raiders. Just did not see that happening at all. Zay Flowers was the leading receiver for Baltimore, 7 catches for 91 yards. On the receiving side for Las Vegas, Devontae Adams, I mentioned earlier, and Brock Bowers had a great game. You can rewind it if you want to hear more about that game. I talked about the Cardinals earlier as well. The Cardinals are for real. They're good right now. The numbers back it up. And only a couple more. I've been avoiding this one, the Steelers and the Broncos. So far through 2 weeks, the Steelers offense has put up only 8 field goals and 1 touchdown, but they find themselves sitting at 2-0. And they're at the very top of the AFC North. Justin Fields, who's stumbling for injured starter Russell Wilson, did enough to lead his team to victory. And Fields gave Russell Wilson what he called a pity ball for how we did Russell Wilson dirty. Bo Nix had another average game, if you want to call it that, throwing for 246 yards on, wow, it was that good. 20 for 35 passing. He never found the end zone. He was intercepted twice. He was sacked twice. He had a pair of turnovers deep in Seattle territory. The interception in the end zone was so bad. It was so bad. It was just like, we all were just like, what the hell? What is he doing? It was just awful. Terrible interception. You can't have that late. You're trying to close out the half and get some points on the board. In 20 drives under Nix so far, the Broncos have 2 field goals and 2 touchdowns to go with 11 punts, 3 picks, and it should be much more interceptions than that. Luckily, these are defensive players, not offensive players, so they keep dropping them. TJ Watt had another monster game defensively. He finished with a sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and 2 quarterback hits. But more news to come about this game when I get Rick back in here, because I want to share a little more about this game and the whole trip in general, but I'll do that on my channel. Next up, we got Kansas City and the Bengals. It wasn't the prettiest game for Patrick Mahomes, and in the end, I'll say this. Cincinnati had no business losing this game. I mean, this was an all-time just collapse late in the game. The Chiefs shouldn't have won this game, but the Bengals, they couldn't win it when they had the lead. Like, there was no reason for the Bengals to lose this game. I'm trying a better way to say it. They had no reason to lose this game, and it's just like they just collapsed. Kind of like the Lions in the third quarter against the Niners in the NFC Championship game. I mean, it was like, it was hard to watch. At the end of the day, Harrison Butker drilled a 51-yard field goal as time expired, giving the Chiefs a 1-point lead. The Bengals, my gosh, they just made so many mistakes. At the end of the day, the Chiefs played the best football when the game mattered the most. And had it not been for a Jamar Chase unsportsmanlike conduct penalty and rookie safety Jahan Anthony getting called for defensive pass interference on a crucial 4th down with the game on the line, the Bengals would have won this game against, the Chiefs. But unfortunately, those penalties did happen. It was back and forth all game, and we saw 5 lead changes in the 4th quarter alone. Mahomes threw for 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. But it was his incomplete pass intended for Rashee Rice on 4th and 16 on the game's final drive from Kansas City's 35 that turned out to be decisive. Anthony arrived a split second early and moved Rice from behind with his body, and flags flew with 38 seconds remaining to keep the Chiefs alive. This play happened following what looked to be a 4th down conversion to Rice, but was called back after the Chiefs' left tackle, Wanya Morris, was called for an illegal hands to the face on Trey Hendrickson. Morris was replacing starting left tackle Kingsley, who was benched after struggling to block Hendrickson all day. Hendrickson finished with 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hits, but he also forced multiple holding calls, including one that negated Travis Kelce's 51-yard reception. Joe Burrow threw for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns, both to Andre Usia, I can never say this guy's name, Asovius, who is actually probably going to end up, I guess, coming out of the starting lineup because Jermaine Burton is going to go to 3. T. Higgins is coming back, so he'll be 2. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with him, with T. Higgins being healthy, but Jamar Chase was limited to only 4 catches, 34 yards, as Trent McDuffie had Chase covered all day. However, the biggest news for Kansas City was the loss of Isaiah Pacheco for 6 to 8 weeks because he fractured his fibula after he was tackled awkwardly on the game's final drive. You hate to see it, especially for somebody like that. And we got Nick in the chat. What's up, Kyle? Hoping for Bo Nix and not Mo Picks. Dude, I know, man. I know. All we can do is hope. A lot of hopium being sold. The Houston Texans got the win over the Bears in a second half where CJ Stroud and the Texans offense struggled to move the ball. It was the Texans defense that stepped up Sunday night to secure the win. Houston picked off Caleb Williams twice after halftime, and the Texans held on to a 19-13 victory. Stroud threw for 260 and a tug. That touchdown went to Nico Collins, who finished his night with 8 catches, 135 yards, and a touchdown. Houston managed only 1 field goal after halftime, but the defense made it hold up. Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick in the draft, was 23 for 37, 174 yards. He was sacked 7 times. 6 different Houston players logged a sack in the win. And Will Henderson Jr., Daniel Hunter leading the way with 1.5 each. DJ Moore was Chicago's leading receiver, a group that was without Keenan Allen, who was out with a heel injury, and with a hobbled Rome Odunze. Moore finished with 6 catches for 53 yards, and the Bears defense had quite another nice showing, but was held back continually by the lethargic Bears offense. And this is a common theme we're seeing right now with these 3 rookies. Texans game made me feel like the Bears have gone from a bad O-line, Justin Fields, to Justin Fields with a bad O-line. Yeah. Seriously. I don't think any of these quarterbacks have popped by any means. And last but not least, we have the most surprising, not most surprising, but pretty surprising. The Eagles losing to the Atlanta Falcons. Cousins pass to Drake London with 34 seconds left stunned the fans at Lincoln Financial Field as the Falcons walked out of Philly as a winner with a score of 22-21. Cousins led a flawless last-minute drive for Atlanta and connected with Drake London for a 7-yard go-ahead touchdown. Saquon Barkley, somebody that is always, surefire, I'm going to catch the ball, no questions asked, Mr. Consistent, Mr. Go-Ahead touchdown, dropped a short pass that stopped the clock with 1:46 seconds left. It was like if he catches the ball, the clock runs, and they get a first down, and the game's over. But no, he drops the ball, they don't get the first down, and the clock stops. So it's like a terrible turn of events for the Eagles when that ball hits the ground. And that was plenty of times for Cousins to going against an Eagles defense playing soft coverage with a non-existent pass rush. And plus, Kirk Cousins, man, he's been here before. He can do this. It's only a second game since tearing his Achilles, but we knew that he was going to be back. And I feel like this was his moment where he's like, I'm officially back. Bijan Robinson had a solid night. He had 97 yards, catching 4 passes for 25 yards out of the backfield. Hurts had his final pass intercepted by Jesse Bates, who was traded by Cincinnati along with Justin Simmons. So they got a pretty good secondary in Atlanta now, and they were able to seal the victory with a pick at the end of the game and celebrate on the sideline. Hurts finished the game with 183 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick to go along with 85 yards and 1 touchdown rushing. One thing I'll say, it seems like all over the NFL right now, which is weird, passing is down. Like, defense is like doing really well. Like, you see like Patrick Mahomes threw for 150 yards. Jalen Hurts, 183 yards. Caleb Williams, 174 yards. Like, nobody's lighting it up. Nobody's throwing 5 touchdown passes. Alvin Kamara scoring 4 rushing touchdowns, but like it's just interesting. I mean, even CJ Stroud, who had just such an incredible season last year. He had 260 and a touchdown, which is, I would say, some of the best numbers out there. I mean, Joe Burrow had 258. But I think when you look at quarterbacks right now, it seems like passing yards are way down. I don't know if it's just me or if you guys feel that way too, but with no A.J. Brown for the Eagles, because he was dealing with a hamstring injury, Devontae Smith stepped up in his place and he caught 7 passes for 76 yards and a touchdown. But overall, week 1, lots of shocking games. Games that could have been shocking to other people that I got right. The Cardinals, the Vikings over the 49ers. I should have went with my gut. I was wanting to go Tampa over the Lions and I didn't. But that one was shocking to some. Overall, I had a pretty good week. I went 10-7 or I believe 10-7. So pretty happy with the week. We won more than we lost. Of course, I'm always going to lose my Bronco game until they win. And we got Rick in the chat. Nick said, Texans game made me feel, yo mama, Nick. Rick, we've also gone from Drew Lock to Drew Lock. I don't claim Russ. Yeah. No, we've gone from Drew Lock to Drew Lock to Drew Lock to Drew Lock to Jay Cutler to Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock was just Jay Cutler. A little less talented, though. Kind of like how Zach Wilson is a drunk Patrick Mahomes. Zach Wilson or Drew Lock is a less talented Jay Cutler. But yeah, a lot of surprises week 1. Overall, who won week 2? If I had to give you a team, it was the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Saints. The Saints and the Bucks won week 2 because they immediately put themselves in the top 10 conversation. You might say it's just one win. Well, they're playing top 10 defense. They're playing top 10 offense. Derek Carr's playing quarterback better than anybody. And for Tampa, it is clear that they are continuing right where they left off. Last year, the NFC South was a laughingstock, right? It was a joke of a division. We're talking about 2 top 10 teams in one division right now in the NFC South. So I think those 2 teams are in really great shape right now. New Orleans is going to have another tough test against Philly at noon next week. And we'll see how they do. For Tampa, they're going to have to play the Broncos. So I think the Broncos, it'll serve their team well to have to hit the road. I think it's good for a team when you can't win to hit the road and then you spend the whole week together in the hotel. You get a lot of team bonding in. You're away from home where you might get sidetracked with, honey-do list and, daddy duties. And it can be good for a team that hasn't got a win yet to have to go, to the East Coast and, just be with their team and have that team bonding and get this win. And they're actually going to stay on the East Coast because they play the Jets the following Sunday. So the Broncos are leaving home for 2 weeks. And if they can get a win, this could be really good bonding for the team to come back and get a winning record against the Raiders when they wear their throwbacks, hopefully in position to go 3-2. But I know right now it feels like the sky is falling. 0-2 is absolutely awful. But whether you're Caleb Williams in the Bears or you're Jaden Daniels or you're Bo Nix, we all have to exercise patience. Why? We have no choice. Like, it is clear that this is going to take some time, that this isn't going to happen right away for us. So we might as well just enjoy the journey and say, okay, well, hopefully we get better. Hopefully that this is gonna, take 4 weeks and not 2 seasons, because we do know that we learned from Bryce Young being benched this week, and there is an expiration date, and it's about 18 games. You can only be shitty for 18 games before you're going to get pulled. You can be shitty and then show improvement, but you can't just stay shitty for 18 games. So for all of these quarterbacks, they are on the clock. And for us fans, all we can do is be patient and hope that they show signs of improvement, because we want these guys to work out. Let's be real. We got Bill in the chat. He said, holy crap, missed most of the show. I'll watch it back. I'll pay my penance. Oh, I'll pay my penance. Thank you, Bill. Bill gifting one Only Football membership. Man, Bill, I appreciate it. I don't know how Rick finds out who those go to. I'm really curious to know who they go to, but I'll be going live again tomorrow. So today was just kind of like, okay, let's get my feet wet. I took a bunch of notes for today. I didn't lay them all out on this show. I just kind of wanted to come here and get my feet wet again, try to get back into the routine. Honestly, it felt kind of like I felt a little like I needed to dip my toes back in the pool after being gone for a week. So don't judge this episode too harshly. Give me some time to get back into it. Tomorrow, I'm sure I'll be back in the swing of things, giving you guys really good content. So, but we had Rick in here. We had Bill. We had Nick. Tomorrow, check your notifications. I'll be going live tomorrow. But I'm happy to be back. I had a really good time at the stadium. I'm going to be uploading a bunch of pictures too to kind of share some of my trip for those of you that are interested. I ended up getting autographs from the Denver Broncos after the game. I was outside of the stadium and they saw me, and I saw Quinn Meinerz, and I saw him. He was walking straight by me, and I was like, Quinn, and he wouldn't say anything. I had a Sharpie in my hand, and I said, sign me anywhere and I'll go get it tattooed. And his girlfriend looked at him, and she said, he said, sign him anywhere, he'll get tattooed. And he looked at me, and he was like, walked right over, looked at me, signed me, and then just left everyone out. Because then once he signed me, everyone was like, Quinn. He just walked back to his bus and he signed me. So this is where Quinn Meinerz signed me. Quinn Meinerz, number 77, signed me. And then other Bronco players started coming up, and they started signing me. And then this guy standing next to me was like, my uncle owns a tattoo shop in Denver. I'll call him right now. And so we got Justin Chernod signed. And we got, these ones are healing. And we got DJ Jones. So we got a couple Bronco tattoos. And it was cool to lock in those moments forever. So really, really cool trip. I can't wait to share more about it tomorrow. It was really cool. The Rocky Mountains, I can't say enough about how beautiful the Rocky Mountains are. I mean, driving through the Rocky Mountains was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I've done this drive a couple times, but it was just like so serene. I had an elk come right up to me, and he looked at me right in the eyes. And it was like this moment of like, I'm human, you're an elk, but we connected in this bonding moment. And then we went and stayed in these caves that were hot springs. And it was so hot, man. It was like a steam room, but it was like they had these like little cave pools, and like you get in them and they're like 120 degrees. Oh my God, dude. It was so cool. And then I met this guy that went to college at Colorado, and his parents were in town visiting. So then we went out to this tiny town and went to like a brewery and watched some live music. And it was, the whole trip was just so cool, because there was like kind of like an outline of like, okay, we're going to go here, but it wasn't so structured. There was a lot of flexibility to just kind of like oh, let's just go do this. Let's just go do this. So the whole thing just felt so amazing, and it was honestly an amazing trip. But excited to be back with you guys. So I'll be going live tomorrow. Rick said it. Bill, you're the fucking best. You're crazy, Kyle. I will keep doing it, hoping it goes to Nick. Still not eligible, lol. Oh, I didn't know Nick wasn't eligible. I didn't know he was a pirate. Why? How come you're not eligible? But thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna be back tomorrow. Hit the like button on this video if you guys enjoyed it. Share it with your friends. Share it with your coworkers, everybody involved. And what else should you do? Follow Rick on Twitter or X at and now Rick, and follow me at NFL with Kyle. And a lot of content that I'm going to be uploading. That I got a lot of really cool things that I got to see. All of it I'm going to share with you in due time. So thank you guys for tuning in to the recap. Going to have predictions tomorrow. I'll see you guys soon. Have a good night. And of course, see ya!